Mitsubishi Electronics presents the Lipton International Players Championships from Key Biscayne, Florida. Today's show is brought to you by Lipton Tea, the tea with a clean, refreshing flavor all of its own. And by Mercury, available at your Lincoln Mercury dealer. Sabatini and Evert are through to the finals. You see them walking on the court. They are just about to start their warm-ups for this championship match and the $100,000 first prize. Good day to you, everyone. I'm Cliff Drysdale. Women's singles match will follow in just a moment. First of all, though, a postscript for you on what happened this morning if you haven't already heard it. The final match tomorrow was supposed to be between Yvonne Lendl and Thomas Muster. Muster last night about midnight was involved in a car accident that was not his fault. He had to undergo surgery this morning to his left knee. It was serious surgery, exploratory surgery. And the doctor found out that he needed or is going to need additional surgery. So it seems that he will be going back to Austria, his home, and will have that additional surgery. He could not do the surgery here because the abrasion that the accident caused really made it impossible for him to continue the work that he had started to look into. Thomas Muster is out, sadly, of this championship. But the women's singles final will follow, and let me introduce you to Mary Carrillo and Stephen Flink. Mary, first of all, let's talk about the women's singles match today. This is a match between two players who are ranked in the top 4 in the world.
Well, that's right. As a matter of fact, Gabriela Sabatini has taken over the number 3 spot from Chris, so this match means a lot to both of them. And I think Chris will have a tough time. She herself said, I have to play very, very well or I don't have a chance against Sabatini. You can see how windy it is out here. I think Chris is a very good wind player, but that'll make it even tougher to fight all that topspin. And frankly, Chris has been playing pretty well, but she's been returning serve a lot better than she's been holding serve. I'm giving it to Sabatini in 3 sets.
All right, so Mary Carrillo says that it is going to be Sabatini in 3 sets. There's somebody else who's not afraid to make a prediction. I can tell you that because he's been with us now for a couple of days, and it is Steve Flink. Steve, I want to get your prediction and your views on this match.
Well, Cliff, I think this match is primarily about pride. I think it's a toss-up match. I think they both believe they can win this tennis match, but I think that Chris Evert will wear down Gabriela Sabatini in the end. I think her ball control will be better in the win. I think she'll win this match in 3 sets.
Good effort from Sabatini in the semifinals quickly, Steve.
It was. She came back. She beat Sakova from a set down and played very well at the end. This will be an entirely different kind of match, a baseline struggle.
Steve Flink is going to get a look at this match from, well, very close because he's going to be on court. It is the women's singles final, live, the Lipton International from Key Biscayne in a moment. Coverage of the women's finals will take place on Key Biscayne. How are things out here today? 78 degrees, 105. That will go up a little bit as the afternoon progresses. It is mostly sunny, increasing clouds this afternoon, but no rain that we can see anyway. It is windy, though. Remember that, 20 miles per hour. It feels, well, it feels a little stronger than that as we speak to you now. Chris Evert, number 4 player in the world. Sabatini just overtaken her in the rankings, and they will play for the championship here at the Lipton. It is a Grand Slam style event here. 2 weeks, 128 players started out here. Chris, as you can see, is 34 years old. Mary?
And she's looked very good. She's extraordinarily fit, Chris. She came into this tournament off of a very strong Virginia Sims in Boca Raton, where she took a set off Steffi Graf, the first time she's done that in a long time. Her road here has been quite comfortable, except for that quarterfinal. She was up 5-3 in the third to Helen Kalesi of Canada and needed a tiebreak to finally close it out. She said she didn't play well until the tiebreak in that third set, pulled it together, and then it was no contest at all in the semis against Zina Garrison, who frankly just couldn't keep the ball in the court. Chris said after the match, I don't even know how I'm playing because I couldn't tell against Garrison. Sabatini has had an easier time. And yet she's not looked overpowering. She certainly is beatable. I don't blame Chris Evert for thinking that she's got a good shot against Sabatini. She's had a pretty strong 89 so far, and in this tournament, she's gone straight sets, as you can see, except for that first set she dropped to Helena Sakova. She said once she lost that tiebreak, she started moving a little better. She was more alert, and she felt pretty comfortable. But of course, in this final, she'll be back to playing a baseliner in Chris Evert.
Well, they have two contrasting styles to some extent. Evert, as you see, leads at 6-2. The last time they played was at the Canadian Open, and Sabatini won that in straight sets. But you have Sabatini, of course, a much better player than those early times that they played. She hits a lot more topspin, and I suppose how well Chris can handle that topspin is going to affect the outcome.
Certainly the history of this tournament bodes well for Chris. She's always gotten to the finals of this tournament. Sabatini finally broke through and got to the quarters for the first time here. I think she tends to feel quite a bit of pressure because she does live in the Key Biscayne area. She only lives about a mile or two from this stadium, as a matter of fact. The fans are very much behind her. It'll be interesting to see which way the fans fall, because Chris Evert, of course, a hometown girl for so many years.
I think you'll find that they will be probably pretty fair to both players, and depending on who gets their nose out front first, they might go for the one who is down. That so often happens. Their hard-court record this year pretty substantial for both of them, isn't it?
I think a big thing to watch in these opening games especially is the serve. And Chris Evert has already double faulted 27 times in this tournament. That's very high for her.
And the wind is not going to help her in that respect.
No,
Sabatini, of course, will serve first. Best of three. Umpire is asking for quiet from the fans. Somebody behind Sabatini taking her seat. That's why there's just a slight delay. Sabatini is ready. First ball in the air. Championship of the Lipton.
Steve Flink, I agree with you so much that this is a match all about pride.
Steve Flink, by the way, is at courtside. After this, you may tell us just how windy it feels to you down there, Steve. How's it feel down there, Steve?
I mean, before that point, I felt it was very calm. In the middle of the point, we got some swirl right midway to the point as Sabatini hit that cross-court forehand. So it's unpredictable, and it varies a great deal.
First game of the match, game point, Sabatini.
Steve, you know Chris real well. How much do you think it bugged her to lose the number 3 spot to the server?
I think substantially, Mary. I think that's what I mean about the pride. I think she believes she should be at least number 3 and contending, actually, for the number 2 spot with Martina Navratilova, who has not won a Grand Slam title for 2 years. So actually, I think all 3 of these players will be vying for that spot this year.
They are playing, in fact, for the number 3 position in the world, because the winner of this match will be the number 3 player when it's all over. One game to love, Sabatini. First this afternoon, it is closing in, as you can see, on, let's say that's about 106, 107 degrees at this point, but it is breezy, as we've said, so that will cool things down to some extent. That's the good news. The bad news that it is very tough to make good contact with the ball when there is an unpredictable breeze. Evert serving, second game of the match. After the sad accident of Thomas Muster last night, we should tell you no decision has yet been made by the officials as to what will happen tomorrow afternoon. If we find out before this match is over, we'll let you know.
15
Of this match, Chris said, it's important for me to get off to a good start and keep my concentration. She said, I've had lapses. I've been fighting all tournament long. Chris said what will help her in this match is that she does respect the Sabatini game, and she said knowing that she's number 3 will help me concentrate in this final. But as Chris also pointed out, whether you're 3 or 4, you're not number 1. She made a point to say that. You're still not number 1, Chris said.
First time that Sabatini beat Evert was last year at the Virginia Slims of Florida. She beat her 6-1, 7-5. They had played 6 times before that. Evert had won each one of those. And then Sabatini went on to beat Steffi Graf. She beat her twice last year. Both of them so far playing a little tentatively, Mary, maybe because of the wind and maybe just because it's the first game of a major championships and they're a little tight. Game point.
That is the shot that Chris Evert is going to have to look out for most in this match. The wide ball off the forehand side of Sabatini, dragging her wide to her forehand. It'll happen on the backhand cross course as well, but she's going to have to try and loop those back, work her way back into the points, and not really go for broke.
Told you about the times that Sabatini beat Graf. Of course, she lost to her a number of times last year, including 2 big ones, one at the US Open and the other one at the Olympic Games in Seoul in the final, but she took home a silver medal.
Oh, that's too good.
Chris chose to come in cross-court off that short ball. You present Sabatini with those kind of angles, and she can create even better ones off her forehand side. A dangerous play to come in cross-court against Gabriela Sabatini.
But what Chris seems, Steve, to be doing very well this game is pumping those first serves in. She's not going for too big a first serve. She said the last 3 months, she took 3 months off so she can develop more power in her serve, but she still doesn't feel it's consistent enough. And I don't think she wants to serve too many second serves against Sabatini.
Deuce in the second game, Sabatini 1 game to love. Or was it called wide?
Called wide, Cliff. It was just wide on the cross court there. Chris didn't play this. She played a little finer than she had to. She had control of the rally. The drop shot was not that good. Chris comes in on the two-hander, and look at it, just wide in the alley on the cross-court approach.
Awfully close call. We're a long way away from it. Looked like it might have clipped the line, but this is break point for Sabatini. Another break point for Sabatini. This is her second.
Picked up right in the middle of that point. There's no question about it. It contributed to that Evert error, unforced off the forehand side. She just didn't gauge it right. Sabatini actually hit short off her forehand side, provoked by the wind as well. It picks up suddenly in the middle of points, then dies down again.
Now, Steve, you know, I think Sabatini is at a disadvantage as a wind player because she doesn't move. I don't think sometimes she's specific enough in her footwork. But don't you think stroke-wise it helps Sabatini over Evert? That's what I think.
I'm not sure, Mary. I think that she handles it better than she used to, and with her heavy topspin, it's true she can control the ball and keep it in the court, but she can't always direct it exactly where she wants it. I think Chris is still able to place the ball just about where she wants when she's confident in the win.
But confidence is a big factor, especially if you lose it in the wind. It's so tough to get it back. 15 low.
My feeling on that, the reason I give the nod stroke-wise to Sabatini in heavy wind like this, or in gusty wind especially, is that she uses an oversized racket and she hits with so much, there's so much work on her ball, so much topspin, that even if she's slightly off, you know, if she frames the ball slightly or whatever, that ball will still go in and it will still bounce funny.
30 love. Mary, I agree with you. The fact is that there's a lot more margin for error in those spin shots. As you take a look at Steve Flink, who is our commentator at courtside, he's just about 10 steps from where Sabatini is when she serves. that margin for error. Sabatini's shots have got her out to a big lead. One serve break. 3 games to love in the first set. Left of your screen, Colette, Chris's mother and father and husband Andy Mill on the right of your screen, watching daughter and wife Chris Evert playing against Gabriela Sabatini. She trails by 3 games to love in the first set in this best of 3 set final. Sabatini's best win of 1988 was the Virginia Slims Championship. She beat Maliva, Zvereva, Sukova, and Pam Shriver, who had beaten Steffi Graf. She won that last one. It was a best of 5 set final.
When Chris was playing with the wind, she was overhitting the backhand. There you saw her not quite able to measure that forehand, the high forehand, hitting into the net as she's going into the wind. She's going to have to gauge this wind better. Up to this point, certainly hasn't done her best job. I thought this was a pretty good drop shot from Chris Evert, but watch Sabatini cover it. There's the same forehand drop shot from Evert. Sabatini so quick. Chris followed it in, but Sabatini angles it past her cross court with a slice.
She's right on top of things today, isn't she?
15-30, love 3, first set. You mentioned, Mary, the fact that she lost to Steffi Graf, but won a set at the Virginia Slims of Florida, which was the last tournament that Chris played here, not far away, a couple of hours drive in Boca Raton. That's the best result she's had this year. Likova beat Chris at Indian Wells, and at the Pan Pacific tournament she lost to Laurie McNeil in 3 sets in the second round.
You saw Chris steer the ball into the middle of the court. Evert obviously wants to move around Gabriela Sabatini. But lately, you know, perhaps because of the wind, she's been missing. That last rally, she kept it right down the middle of the court and drew the error. Maybe she should do that for a while until she figures out this wind. Play it safe.
Overhit.
Yes, she did, Cliff. It was a short, low ball. She had to really try and guide that more than she did there. She took a pretty full drive at the approach shot. Dangerous choice.
It's tough for her, Steve. I mean, she's put together, she's constructed some good points and then hasn't ended them. A couple of big points thus far in the match. Chris really had control of until the last shot.
This is break point for Sabatini for a second break, first set. she does. It's 4 games to love for Sabatini of Argentina in this first set, best of 3.
Sabatini for love.
If you're looking for some advantage that Chris has, Mary, relative to what you were saying about the fact that the topspin of Sabatini really helps her in the wind, and I agree with that. The fact that Chris has a slightly shorter swing on both sides is a plus in the wind, but I'm not sure that it makes up for it. 4-love first set. Watch Sabatini's swing on the forehand. Big wind up, and she has a much longer swing on the backhand than Chris.
To 15 love.
Even though I think Evert moves better, certainly cleaner than Sabatini, because Sabatini's ball takes so long to get over the net and into the court, she saves herself. She gets herself back into a strong position.
This is going to be one of the only ways I think that Evert can work her way back in, changing pace, lobbing, playing good defensive tennis, because when they're exchanging hard drives, Sabatini is getting the better of her. She's playing off the pace much better than Chris. Last point, I thought Sabatini was suddenly wanted to experiment with her slice backhand. She hit more than I think was necessary. It certainly didn't disrupt Chris's rhythm. Here we have Sabatini on the ice, so she finally went to the topspin and missed it after hitting several slice backhands.
$15.30. Just long, 30 all. Chance for Evert. She is 2 serve breaks behind at 4 games to love, but here's break point.
again, we see how well Sabatini can handle speed from Evert. Chris hit a couple of very penetrating backhand down the lines to the Sabatini forehand, but Sabatini is not the least bit disturbed by it. You have to keep changing pace against her all the time.
Surkova hit some pretty dangerous stuff similar to that, didn't she, in the semifinals, and that did not faze Sabatini. That's who she beat in 3 sets. Surkova, a very different style play to Evert, of course.
Advantage Evert.
Another break point. To the delight of the crowd, Chris Evert has broken back once here in the second set to get even. She's going to have to do it again. She's behind 4 games to 1. This is live coverage of the Virginia Slims, the Lipton International Players Championship from Key Biscayne, Florida. It is Gabriela Sabatini and Chris Evert. We have a man here that has joined us for just a moment that I know that you'll be interested to see, Mr. John Newcomb from Australia. Welcome, Nuke. What do you think about this
Cliffy.
so far?
Well, I'm really impressed with Sabatini, the way so far that she's dictated the match with a topspin shot. She's got Chrissy behind the baseline, and I'm interested to see how Chris is going to fight her way out of this hole. In the last game, we saw her pick up the pace a little bit on her drives. She also moved in and started slicing a few backhands, taking the ball earlier, but she's been in trouble so far. She's been trying to play from 6 meters or 20 feet behind the baseline. It's pretty hard to do.
Love the team.
4 games to 1, Sabatini in the first set. Evert serving, love 15. All. John Newcomb has spent most of the last 4 days just about 5 yards away from us, talking to Channel 9 in Australia. That's why he's here. Thanks for coming in. John, what are you doing these days?
Well, doing some work for the 9 network back to Australia. We're doing 7 tournaments, the major tournaments around the world back to Australia. Not as many as you're doing on ESPN. You seem to be doing 1 a week.
You sure do a lot. 15 all. Are you playing any?
I have a big match coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm playing the International Father and Son Championships in Switzerland, in Lugano, with my son. Hope to become the international champions.
Speaking of international, John, Sabatini, like Chris Evert before her, is so widely appreciated all over the world. Is she a big deal in Australia? What do they think of Gabby?
Hasn't played a lot down there, but obviously she's a big name and number 3 in the world.
Sure isn't Aussie-type tennis, though.
Well, Sabatini hasn't done that well at Wimbledon yet, and Wimbledon is such a big thing in Australia, also the US Open, because she got to the finals there last year, and that established her credibility down in Australia.
15:42 break points for Sabatini to go ahead 5-1 here in the first set. She'd serve for the set if she could win one of the next 2 points. John Newcomb has joined us for a couple of games. Nuke, one match that you'll remember that Chris played, in fact the last Grand Slam championship that she got to the final of was the Australian Open 2 years ago down at the New Flinders Park, and she played very well in the final. You remember how she came back in that second set, Steffi Graf?
Yeah, she was down, I think it was 5-love or 5-1 in the second, and came back, lost at 7-5, but you can never count Chris out. And I love to watch Chris's facial expression as she's playing a match like this, because you can tell if you look closely at her face when she feels she's getting her way back into the match. Right now she looks very worried, and she's trying to, you can see her almost a mind ticking over. What can I do? How can I stop being dictated to from the baseline, which she's not used to?
5-1, 15-love. What an opportunity, but remember it is windy out there. 30-love.
It's sunny as well, but still this wasn't a tough smash for Chris. Sabatini was basically just trying to stay in the point here. This wasn't terribly high, but Chris was slightly off balance.
Thank you.
Just wasn't too well prepared for that big smash.
To me, like she didn't move her feet properly to the ball.
Thirty, 15. Sabatini serving for the set. I'm Cliff Drysdale along with Mary Carrillo. Steve Flenk is at courtside, and John Newcomb has joined us for a couple of games. Nuke, you guys from Australian television, of course, you're working with Fiery Fred and Tony Trebbett. How did you guys see this match? Who did you call for the outset?
I really wasn't sure. Played it down the middle. It's hard to say. I mean, Sabatini, she's 19 years of age, number 3 in the world. Chris is 4. Sabatini won 2 out of 3 of their matches in 1988.
Set point.
Tell you the truth, Cliff, I had never really watched them play one another before, so I wasn't sure of the tactics that would be employed. I've been surprised at how casual Sabatini is down there. She's playing so with ease. She looks like everything Chris hits, she feels I can get to it.
I can handle it.
And I've got plenty of time to play what I want to do.
That was set point. She has another one. Nuke, a quick reaction to you. I know how sad we all are about it, but Thomas Muster and that deal last night.
Just shows you what to do in life. You never know what's going to happen, what's around the corner. Has one of the biggest moments of his life, coming back in that match last night from 2-0 down, and then about an hour and a half later, wham. Whole life changes.
Talking about Thomas Muster, finalist in the singles, had to withdraw because he was involved in an accident, in case you just joined us, late last night while preparing for dinner. He had knee surgery this morning. Will go back to Austria and have additional surgery on his knee. Not over yet. Deuce.
Mary, are we going to see Chris start to come into the net a little more?
She had better, because I don't think she's got any future in staying on the baseline with Sabatini. Unlike Groff, who can stay right on top of the baseline and hit them back even harder at Sabatini, even quicker, Chris is forced all the way back beyond the baseline trying to respond to the Sabatini ball. And that's what gets her in trouble. You know, that big, ugly topspin of Sabatini's worries Chris a lot more than someone like Steffi Graf, who can handle that stuff. Much more Chris is working on that baseline. It's normally Chris who plays cat and mouse with her opponents, but again, it's the style of ground stroke play by Sabatini that's so worrisome.
What about the option of bringing Sabatini in?
I think what Chris has got to do in set 2 is scare Sabatini, mix it up a little bit, hit more angles, and again exploit the fact that Sabatini doesn't move as cleanly as Chris. As you say, there's no pressure yet on Sabatini.
And the first set to Sabatini. John Newcomb, one of the great players in our sport, certainly for those who know him, one of the great personalities. Thanks a lot for coming by. Enjoy your rest of your day with Channel 9.
Thank you, Cliff.
Sabatini wins the first set 6-1. And from the Miami Sea Aquarium, which is just moments away here at Key Biscayne,